down.
Well, thank you very much for your invitation, and congratulations to SPARCS and POCITYF for organizing this session. I will try to be brief and very direct on the content I'll be showing regarding POCITYF development in Évora, which is a small town in the south of Portugal. Let me just share my screen and just share with all of you our thoughts, our goals, and our results in POCITYF. Okay, let me just take this off.
Bom dia, o Pedro está em todas, pá. Sim senhor. Eu aqui estou divulgando, mas vocês já estão online desde o início.
Hi, Romulo, you need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that everyone is listening. Okay.
Peter been down?
Yeah.
He was down. He was surprised where you are. Oh, I see. Well, I called him, but he didn't answer. So.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody for muting everyone. Please keep your mics off so I can do the presentation. So as I was telling you, Évora is a small city in the south of Portugal. It is a very historical.
Louis, if I may, I'm sorry, I think you need to switch the display settings on the PowerPoint because we are currently in a mode where we see the notes. Or
okay.
You don't have notes, but yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I know PowerPoint is very annoying.
Is always
with this. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just change this. Is this okay now?
It's loading.
Still loading?
Yes, I have you in vision.
Okay, so now it's okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So POCITYF, what's the goal? Leading the smart evolution of heritage cities. As you know, most of the cities in Europe are historic cities. They have constraints, they have challenges to face on the modernization of their urban areas. If you look at Évora, Évora was the first city in the world to be classified as a complete city in the city center as World Heritage by UNESCO. So the goal of POCITYF is also to deliver positive energy districts. So to look at the cities and deliver a positive balance in terms of energy between energy production, energy consumption, energy efficiency. And so we need to look at these cities as more efficient and not only having a huge solar or renewable energy production sites, but to have the cities to be positive in terms of balance, to have the districts or the blocks in a city to be positive in terms of balance and production and consumption. POCITYF also delivers an emphasis on cultural and historical protected areas like the city center of Évora, where a small stone in the street is also considered protected by World Heritage due to the classification by UNESCO. Of course, in the end, we want to, for the citizens that live in these cities, in these historical centers, to have a better life, to be able to access new solutions, technology solutions, energy production solutions to improve their well-being and their participation in the decisions that the city makes. So POCITYF has 46 partners, involves 13 European countries with a focus on historical cities, looking at legal barriers, constraints because of being protected areas, replication of solutions to other European cities where that face the same problems, and to deliver technology, new technologies to the city centers. The budget is 22.5 million euros and the grant about 20 million euros through several partners. It's a 5-year project. The lighthouses are Évora and Alkmaar, and the fellow cities Bari, Celje, Granada, Vojvodov, Lorina and Abjad. As I said before, this is a glimpse about the city of Évora. As you see, it is very dense place in terms of monuments. It is said that it has 7 cities below the current city. So also in the ground, it is very difficult to do constructions or to do modernization in the city. So lots of constraints within the city. As I said, the complete set of the historical center is classified by World Heritage. So not only the temple that you see or the monument that you see in the pictures, but everything in the city center is classified as World Heritage. It was the first city in the world to be classified as a complete set from World Heritage by UNESCO. So it was also the first city to have an intelligent energy grid. So EDP deployed a new set of equipments to manage the grid in the city. So it was also a kind of a laboratory for what EDP made in the rest of the country. In POCITYF, we target 4 groups of solutions: positive, energy, buildings and districts. So renewable and energy management, retrofitting, and several measures to improve the balance in terms of energy in buildings. Flexible infrastructure, so flexible grid and buildings to better manage the usage of energy, sustainable district heating and cooling, not in every, but in the complete set of POCITYF solutions, citizen-driven social innovation, interoperable connected cities, citizen engagement and co-creation, which is a very important aspect to get the citizens involved in the project decisions. Also in e-mobility, smart charging and vehicle to grid, and mobility as a service. This is 4 target solutions within the scope of POCITYF that are happening in Évora, Alkmaar, and the following cities, the follower cities. In Évora, we have 15 partners from 5 countries, 34 different solutions, 3 positive energy blocks, 1 in the city center, 1 in the industrial park, and the other in Valverde, a very small place near the city. It involves public administration, SMEs, large companies, startups and entrepreneurs, community leaders, citizens, and academia. So it's a complete, I believe, a quadhelix participation model in the project. And the partners from EDP, Dexys, Onyx, Sonai, well, many partners developing different but complementary activities within the scope of the demonstration ecosystem. If you look at the map, for you to better understand the solution, so the city center on the top right, then the industrial park, which is the biggest set of area in terms of the city, and also the biggest consumer block, and then Valverde. Okay, so these solutions are being deployed in these 3 positive energy blocks. The challenges are big, of course, because of the consumptions that exist, because of the constraints that exist, for instance, in the city center, that don't exist in the industrial park, but the industrial park has other constraints or other challenges, mainly on the consumption from industrial companies. Okay, then in Valverde, the more rural area where solutions are being deployed from, and you can look at the slide and see that we have peer-to-peer solutions in terms of energy, gamification, city information platform, data lake to support decision and data structures and information, pay as you throw for the garbage collection, tourist app to improve the experience in the city in the same level as being more efficient visiting the city, smart inverters, second life batteries, using car batteries to support storage in houses, for instance, smart lampposts, 5G connectivity to interact with citizens, positive computing data center to improve the efficiency between the power, the energy used, and the computing power delivered, flexibility algorithms within the scope of the usage of energy in the equipments, solar production in municipal buildings, in schools, in service buildings, in the science park, in Dexys and several other places, and also the transition from CO2 emission fleet to more sustainable mobility in terms of fleet, from diesel and and carbon and petrol-based engine to hybrid and then to electric cars in terms of the fleet that the companies in ever use. So we can replicate then to other companies also to do the transition to a more efficient fleet. Also smart cloud for innovative startups, so bring startups to the POCITYF ecosystem. So we can deliver, as I said, a complete set of solutions and of innovation within the scope of the project to have direct and side effects within the scope of the project. In the city and the academy, so in the municipal buildings and the university, we have 8 municipal buildings with different types of solutions. So you can see there from tiles to solar roofs to more efficient algorithms in terms of managing the energy of the buildings. So this is a complete set of municipal buildings that are made as a set of a community of buildings that produce and consume energy as a complete set. So even though there are 8 different municipal buildings with different energy contracts, they act as one set of buildings producing and consuming energy as a community. So there is a balance between buildings, what they produce and what they consume as a complete set of 8 buildings. 2 university buildings with smart lamppost and EV charging, plus 5G, flexible control algorithms and self-consumption ratio, second life batteries for mobile energy supply. 11 PEB1 clients, so citizen households where they have mobile apps for energy consumption, inverters, innovative inverters to be more efficient, intelligent control algorithms, second life batteries also in houses of citizens, and pay as you throw to measure, not to do for now to charge the customers or the citizens for the waste they produce, but to be able to measure what is the production of garbage for each citizens that is being part of the pilot. So this is to measure what's being produced in terms of waste. If you look at companies, and I give you 3 examples, one SME, that is Dexys, one large company, Sonai, and a science park, Pact. So in Dexys, we are delivering to improve data center power usage efficiency. That is a relation between energy consumption and computing power delivered, EV charging management, because we are doing the transition to a more efficient fleet, cloud computing resources, and city operations framework and data lake that we call the city operations system. In Sonai has a large building in Évora. The intervention or the actions are on the building management system with more intelligent algorithms to manage PV production, EV fleet, and the consumption, and 2 vehicle-to-grid chargers to make direct connection between the cars and the usage of energy from the building. And then the science park also in terms of mobile apps on energy consumption, flexibility control algorithms, and energy production on PV. One of the most innovative projects that we are trying to deliver, it's a community solar farm. There is a new legislation in Portugal that supports this framework. As I said before, in the city center, it is forbidden, and it is really forbidden to place solar panels within on the top of the roofs. It exists, but it is forbidden for you to do it because of the protection from World Heritage. So the solution is to build up a community solar farm near the city, where citizens from the city center or SMEs industrial park or other citizens can place their solar panels and see the energy balance happening in their contract or in their balance of consumption and production. So this is the new framework in Portugal that we are doing this setting up of this community solar farms through a public bid to a concession of a land for a company, for a group of companies to build up this community solar farm where citizens can then buy their solar panels without having to place them on their roofs in the city center. So these are the solutions within the scope of POCITYF that I saw as more relevant in terms of the presentation I would be setting up for today. And now to the second point of this presentation, and one of the things that we have been developing within the scope of POCITYF. Actually, this was not on the first build-up of the project. It was not on the contract, but we added this to the scope of the project. That is to deliver to Évora a framework where every digital application, every digital part of the project could be integrated in a manner that it would work as a complete and integrated operating system within the city initiative for POCITYF and for the future of applications and technical digital solutions that's happening in the city. So our concern was to set the grounds for the development of new applications, new solutions, more data, more informed decisions. So the goal was to set better governance, manage public assets, map the city, manage operations, manage projects, manage performance, and see and what's happened in dashboards and solutions that the city is delivering in terms of services to citizens. So in terms of governance, smart vision over public space and city operations, in asset lifecycle management and dependencies, that is to see the complete set of the city, the geo-vision of the city, the mapping, the services, and all that is happening within the city scope. So we started for building up a digital twin of the city where we are mapping every asset within the city scope. So these assets, they are being mapped in a database and related with each other and with the services. And this was built up from something that is coming from IT, that is configuration management database, where I see all my assets from roads to signs to trees to buildings in this mapping of the city. This will be the base for all the services and the data that I will collect within the scope of the project. If we look at the design and the standards that we are using within this build-up of the digital twin of the city, so we are using NGSE LD as a cross-domain ontology. That is a definition from the European Telecommunication Standards Institute to map everything. So everything is mapped in a smart data model and aligned with this standard. And we are also using the Orion Context Broker, that is a development from Feeware project to make data interoperable and the systems interoperable. So you can use the data produced in Évora in another application in Europe. In terms of modeling what the objects in the city are how they are structured, we are using also a result from Feeware, that is the smart data model. So if you look at a solar panel, it can be represented and is defined in these smart data models, the definitions, what it is a solar panel, what it is a road, what it is a parking spot. So where you can then make sure that what you are doing is interoperable within the scope of European digital applications or systems. So if you look on the right of this slide, you see this is the framework for the city operation system. Okay, so this goal of having a city operating system is not new, but we've managed to, within the scope of POCITYF, to deliver an architecture that is completely open, and it starts from, as you see, from the city digital twin. So having the city mapped within the digital world using standards so it can be used by any application, map the pilot devices within the scope of the project that produce raw data collection that passes on to the Orion Context Broker, and this context broker sets the rules for data interoperability, making sure that the NGSE-LD standard is used. And then on top of it, you have services layer, where the applications to manage the city are being deployed. And then on the top layer, you have a federated integration system. So every citizen can use a common login to access all the applications within the city, and then can interact with several applications like the tourist app, the peer-to-peer, the cultural experience market, and many other applications that are being developed within the project, in the scope of POCITYF, or any other application that the city wants to deploy. So we have several applications being delivered right now. So the mapping of the city, the data lake that will support the storage of all the data produced within the project, like sensors, like applications, and we'll make sure that the interconnection and interoperability between applications can be a reality. So many applications that are already being delivered on top of this framework. And also one interesting thing is to have then startups doing new applications following these interoperability rules that are being defined within the scope of the project. So everything works integrated, and it is future proof in terms of being open, being supported, and being able to deliver the services that the city needs. So in the end, common asset mapping, federated citizen login, data interoperability, application governance, compliance with GDPR, vendor lock-in mitigation. This is very important. So with this framework, the city can deliver application from any vendor and make sure that it is interoperable and it doesn't set grounds for being vendor lock-in in terms of applications, produces knowledge and incremental innovation in terms of the services delivered to citizens. So this was the framework, the digital framework that now is supporting the applications ecosystem within the scope of the city. If we look at another important aspect within the scope of POCITYF, it is the engagement strategy, which is a big challenge both in Évora and Alkmaar, and I believe in many cities in Europe. And we've been able to decide and to design with the political decision makers a strategy for engagement with the citizens. So we started from identifying community leaders that are able to debate with the citizens a specific topic that is a challenge for the city. So we can then put them building up a storytelling about that topic. So not to start with an empty book, but for that community leader together with the municipal team to build a story about that topic. And I will show you some examples of topics in the next slide. So this storytelling is very important to give a context to the citizens on the discussion that we want to have on that topic, to deliver new results and to be a good and positive contribute to the city planning. Okay, so the process starts on learn and build storytelling together with citizens, enrich information to consolidate knowledge, consolidate conclusions and possible voting, design virtual solutions. So build a digital twin of the project, so not physical, digital twin, experiment solutions to optimize the results whenever feasible, to deliver a prototype, and to include the conclusions in the city strategy and planning. If we look at some specific topics that are being developed, the social innovation, so we are working with third sector organizations to improve their efficiency in terms of energy transition and digital transformation, but also to identify families that are with energy poverty, and then to be eligible to receive donations from SMEs, from people that have energy available to donate to them. City energy transition, it is a discussion about how the city as an historical city will engage with the challenges that it faces in terms of energy transition, and to make decisions on that roadmap for the transition, the energy transition in the city. The sustainable cultural experiences, so to discuss with the cultural agents how to design a city or to design events that are more sustainable when it comes year to year, to be more sustainable. From more sustainable, this is aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so that the events are greener, so the events are more sustainable, and this is to be evaluated by the citizens that participate on the events. Mobility and logistics, to improve the efficiency of logistics within the city center, and to have less high CO2 emissions cars or vehicles to go to the city center, and to have only electric vehicles delivering merchandise to the city center. Then another topic that is a long time topic for the city is where are the centralities of the city, and what were the centralities of the city, and what are the places where people want to get together within the city, so the urban planning can adapt to that requirement, or to that ambition from the citizen. So these are 5 topics that are being set. They are being set to have physical and meetings in places within the city, and also using Decidim that comes from a project in Barcelona as the digital tool to promote discussions. Also, one side effect of the project that we already started a program that uses ideas from POCITYF to fund startups to develop new applications and new solutions. So this is also one side effect of the POCITYF development that is already being funded by the regional funding scheme to support startups to develop new solutions. Okay, so this is one of the results that I would like to share with you, and this is engagement with citizens, in this case, to deliver business solutions within the scope of the project. Okay. So thank you for your kind attention, and if you have any questions, I believe Vladi will be open to do it in the end. This is my email if you have any questions, anything you want to contact me. And I would like to give you a message that is extremely important for the city of Évora, that is nowadays the central message within the scope of the city, that is Évora is the place to imagine the world. Évora, as in 2027, hopefully will be European capital of culture, and will be, it is today, but it will be even better place to visit. So I hope you feel curious to visit this historical city, and to visit us in the near future.
Thank you very much, Rui, for this presentation. Indeed, it would be great to see how this concept of heritage and smart cities merging together. I see a lot of clapping. We have some questions in the chat, but I suggest that we can leave them for the end of the session. So now we can move on to Sami. Sami, the floor is yours, but there was more about Sparks.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see my screen. My name is Sami Kazi. I work at VT as a research team leader for smart cities and intelligent buildings, and also a work package leader in the SPARCS project, focusing on collaboration with other smart city projects and, of course, networks. Perhaps if I very briefly just give you an insight on what I'd like to share with you today. First of all, I'd like to talk about what really is the challenge we're trying to address. Our cities, are they a challenge or an opportunity? Then I'd like to dive in a bit into SPARCS, tell you very briefly what the project is about and how the cities we have in the project are, making their transition towards climate neutrality. I will touch briefly also on the importance and role of digitalisation in supporting this transition, and then try to show you some case studies and examples from our cities, and hopefully wrap up with some key takeaways. And I will try to keep this simple, so not too technical, but let's see how it goes. So first of all, let's start off with what is the challenge that we are thinking about or addressing? First and foremost, and now you see different numbers floating around, of course. This is some numbers I picked up from the World Bank, which simply say that cities today consume 75% of the world's energy and at the same time emit almost 60% of global greenhouse gases. Now, if we dive into the deep depth, let's say, of what constitutes a city and what does not, actually these numbers will go up, they will not go down. So just something for us to bear in mind and perhaps note down as a point of concern. Here are some, let's say, statements or figures from the World Health Organization. Then I have a quote from the UN. Now, according to the World Health Organization, and by the way, this is a statement from almost 4 years ago, more than 90% of the world's children breathe toxic air every single day. And of course, the question which comes to our mind is that, is this the type of world we want to leave for our children and their children and future generations? The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres really nicely said, this is just very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, that we must end fossil fuel pollution and accelerate the renewable energy transition before we actually incinerate our only home. Now, of course, people say, yes, we managed to do certain changes when COVID was there, but now when things are getting back to the so-called new normal, the moment you go out and you smell the air, something is just not right. Now, another interesting, number which keeps on popping up in many places and in many forms is cities today produce around 80% of global GDP and innovations. But then think back, cities at the same time are the massive polluters. This is where we have problems. And the question that comes to mind is that, can these cities actually help save our world? Yes, GDP goes up, we have more innovation to solve the problem. Or do we continue to keep on emitting and then lead to destruction in our world? Interesting questions and thoughts to actually think about. Now, the question comes here, if I extend it, is that cities, are they a challenge? Or on the other hand, do we see them as an opportunity? Let's explore this a minute. Now, what are some of the challenges, let's say, cities face? Again, the numbers may vary from here to there, but according to the World Bank in 2020, 55% of the world's population, that's about 4.2 billion inhabitants, they lived in cities. Good, sounds interesting, but that's 55%. They also predict that by 2050, 70% of the global population will live in cities. So is it going to be new cities? Or are we going to densify our existing cities? And let's not forget that the global population is not stagnant, it's not dropping, it's actually increasing. But even if it doesn't increase, and you suddenly move in something like close to 2 more billion people into cities, what will happen? How will we survive? Will our cities actually be able to cope with it? Now, of course, there's so much talk about, yes, urbanism is great, right? If you densify, the more you go up, you can pack more people in over there, centralize services, take away the need for traveling. But at the same time, urbanization brings challenges. Can we meet the demands of the people who are coming? And certain things, they pop up immediately. Will we be able to offer affordable housing, well-connected transportation systems, basic services, infrastructure, jobs? And then one very interesting thing, this always pops up, which unfortunately many people ignore, is that once the city is typically built, its physical form and land use patterns can be locked in for generations. And this leads to what is called unsustainable urban sprawl. And what the sprawl actually does is that it puts a lot of pressure on our land, natural resources, and then, we come to undesirable outcomes, such as cities consuming 2/3 of global energy and also emitting 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. So what can we actually do about it? Quick reminder that with 80% plus minus, global GDP being generated in cities, is that an opportunity? And we think that urbanization can contribute to sustainable economic growth if, and this is a big if, managed well by increasing productivity, allowing innovation and new ideas to emerge. So what does this mean for cities? Let's have a quick look. Where should cities be innovating? I want to make my city grow. Better lifestyle for people. So, when a city tries to address challenges of global significance, such as climate change, urbanization, sustainable growth, do existing innovation models actually make sense? Or do we need to rethink how we innovate? So for cities, there is a need to start making sense of what would be meaningful innovations. And let me just share with you, a simple model. So whenever you want your city to be attractive, you want to drive in people, make sure your existing people don't leave. Whatever happens over there has to be societally desirable. We know that. At the same time, it has to be economically viable. But perhaps most importantly, in today's world, it needs to be environmentally feasible. As you can see in this diagram or this model, there is no technology, there is no digitalization. I'll come to that, a bit later on. But the core of where innovations in cities should be taking place is at the intersection of these three elements: societal desirability, economic viability, and then, of course, environmental feasibility. And as I like to see it, that cities which we have today, they need to transform into innovation ecosystems, living labs, test beds, where all stakeholders, and in particular citizens, would actually participate in developing and implementing innovative solutions. These solutions which support and protecting our environment, support economical growth, and of course, promote the well-being of society. And I will show you later on how our cities are actually addressing some of these elements and how we can do that. But first of all, let me just, jump in and give you a short insight into our wonderful SPARCS project. The name is a bit large. It talks about sustainable, energy positive, and zero carbon communities. But what does it mean? What do? We focus on validating innovative solutions in our lighthouse cities for planning and deploying them out towards integrated energy systems as an efficient means for an urban transition into a citizen-centered zero carbon ecosystem, which again supports a high quality of life. And let's have a look at it. So who are we and what are we doing? We are 31 partners from Finland, Germany, Portugal, Cyprus, Greece, Belgium, Italy, the Ukraine, and Norway. Sorry, Iceland, not Norway, Iceland. And we also have 27 associated partners who are helping us along our journey. So we have people from academia, from research centers, technical SMEs, strategy adopters. We have our wonderful cities. So it's a complete triple helix and value chain. But typically, these are just some of the things we do. First and foremost for us is that we have a community engagement and citizen-centric approach in pretty much everything we do. We've worked with them, we engage with them to even think about how we could monitor and evaluate different positive energy district solutions, have been implemented, to be implemented. We're also demonstrating more than 44 innovative positive energy district solutions in the cities of Espoo and Leipzig. These are our lighthouse cities. We're also seeing how we can enable and support urban transformation, seeing how we can leverage the learnings from our lighthouse cities and many other cities across the world, of course, which are part of the European Commission funded program, and many solutions you'll actually find on Babel's Smart Cities Innovation Platform. Babel is a partner of let's say, SPARCS. We're very happy to have them on board. And our cities, the fellow cities, they see how they can replicate these solutions. And we have cities such as Kifisa, Kladno, Lviv, Maya, and Reykjavik. And then we also want to see how we can support them to generate a bold city vision 2050, carbon neutrality. And this is actually something some cities are saying, well, that's the ultimate aim, but what if and how can we do that sooner? Now, to make all of this happen, we're also providing business models and financing instruments to support, let's say, sustainability of these positive energy districts from both a financial perspective and then an operational perspective. And last but not least, one of the things we in SPARCS love to do is share our learnings and experiences, and then also cooperate with other projects, networks, and initiatives. And when I say share, it's not just us sharing, but we also want to receive a lot and learn, because that's how we collectively become wiser. Let me just list, some of the ambitions and goals of the lighthouse cities we have in SPARCS. We have Espoo in Finland, and we have Leipzig in Germany. So let me start off with Espoo. They want to be carbon neutral by 2030, go to carbon neutral district heating by 2029, use of coal ending 2025, collaboration with citizens, companies, research and educationalists, NGOs, you name it, on different innovations, mechanisms, interventions to reduce CO2 emissions. They also want to continue being the most sustainable city in Europe. This is something Espoo has had for a couple of years. And of course, to also reach the UN Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Let's now get into Leipzig. They want to become carbon neutral by 2050 and achieve carbon neutral public administration by 2035. And again, one of the reasons of this is that if we as a government administration can demonstrate our carbon neutrality, we can actually get others actively to do so. They're also exploring different energy availability in different areas. What are the economics, the community requirements, household consumption, and transportation? How can this help us in the future? Looking into emission balances. Also doing a potential analysis for energy conservation, efficiency, fossil fuels, renewable energy. What would be the trends and actions and scenarios for 2030 and 2050? Build catalogs which support different types of instruments and measures. So what can I use, where and when? How can I connect these with each other? And last but not least, to envision a scenario for 100% renewable energy use. Now, at this point, I should mention, and we're super proud of them, both Espoo and Leipzig have been chosen as part of the 100 missions cities in the Net Zero Cities initiative. And this is together with one of our fellow cities, Reykjavik. So again, 3 wonderful cities from SPARCS being over there as showcases. So naturally, the pressure is there to accelerate what they're already envisioning and doing and take that one step beyond the obvious. Now, what do we do in SPARCS? We co-create impact. We want to do this together with citizens and all of our different types of stakeholders. We're designing positive energy building blocks in district in these lighthouse cities of Espoo and Leipzig. Like I mentioned earlier on, 44 different types of innovative interventions and actions. and then have hands-on feasibility studies in our fellow cities on how can we support scalability, replication. And let's not forget that this is for all citizens. All citizens, nobody is excluded. Now, what you see on this slide on the right-hand side are different types of interventions we've identified at building block level, at district levels, and then at macro levels. For example, renewable energy system integration. We're looking into virtual building heat storages, next generation electric vehicle charging mechanism, predictive building controls, shared renewable energy system, let's say ownership, bi-directional district energy management, virtual power plants. How can we manage district energy storages? Are they seasonal? Do we do them in batteries? Different types of EV sharing, user-centric platforms, virtual energy communities, peer-to-peer energy market spaces, and the list goes on and on and on. And I'll show you, at least some of these examples as we move forward. But let's pause for a moment and start thinking about what is the importance and role of digitalization in supporting cities' energy transitions towards climate neutrality. Now, one of the major dilemmas which cities face today is that they have a lot of systems and subsystems that need to be interlinked and connected in a holistic and systemic way. Now, just look at this. Yes, cities, they have the energy infrastructure. They may have, let's say, renewable energy systems, but do they have integration with electric vehicle charging? Are they efficient? Buildings, yes, they may have efficient energy systems, but perhaps on the user perspective, it's passive. How much flexibility do we have in energy? If we talk about integration of technical solutions, are everything's interoperable? What needs to be digitized? Is there a digital gap? Everybody talks today about electric cars and mobility. Yes, how can we take it up? But most importantly, do we even have the infrastructure to make it happen? You also then have the public issue. Are we exchanging knowledge across cities, across borders? How about the economy, the environment? And the thing is that these systems, at the end of the day, to make sense, they need to be interconnected in a proper way. Just by optimizing one, you may actually be distracting on the other. And if you optimize each of these individually, perhaps the net effect will not be as large as desired. And to create this impact, we need to interlock in these systems, make sure information can flow across them in multiple directions. We can run algorithms to start making sense of this information and then make valuable decisions. One of the big challenges for cities is that I have these systems. Should I keep it? I've invested a lot. Or should I remove it? Should I optimize it? Should I connect it? Build a new one? Or how about even opening it up for others to actually build something on top where they can make innovations? And this is where, of course, we see movements such as the data movement. And I'd like to now show you a simple perspective on, where digitalization makes sense and supports, let's say, a city as an innovation ecosystem in a way that protects the environment, supports the economy, and promotes the well-being of society. As a starting point, I'd like to take you back to this image of 3 circles, which I showed you. Societally desirable, economically viable, and environmentally feasible. And said that, in the middle is where the innovation should be happening. So please bear that in mind when I show this to you. So if we talk about the environment, we have the natural environment and the built environment. So, big deal. We need to make sure they can coexist in peace. And particularly so that the built environment does not hinder the sustainability, the presence of the natural environment. And then, of course, we need to talk about money, which is our economy. 2 elements, value-driven business. People today are demanding value for their money, not just a product. We want value. And then you have connected services. And here is about how can we ensure there is meaningful collaboration between these. At the other end, we have society. Now, of course, government says, I'm super smart. So yes, we need smart governments. But increasingly, and we talk so much about citizen engagement, we need smart people. We don't need them, actually. We are here. But how can we enable this conversation and dialogue? So all of these are pointing towards the center. And this is where digitalization and technology comes in. It allows things to be environmentally feasible, economically viable, and societally desirable. We connect these through technology. We ensure that we can manage a balance between them. And now this is a diagram showing how we're doing that within SPARCS. So like I told you earlier on, for us, the key basis is to validate innovative solutions for planning, deploying, rolling out integrated energy systems as an efficient means for the urban transition towards a citizen-centered zero carbon ecosystem, which also enables a high quality of life. So if you see in this diagram, we have user-centric platforms, we have city-level platforms, we use blockchain, we have mechanisms to support peer-to-peer energy transactions, renewable energy system integrations, mobility, ground source, district heating, and we are trying to see how we can seamlessly connect them. How can we derive more meaning from them and actually make sense of certain things around us? Without going into too much detail, I just like to show you what we call, let's say, our architecture at large, or a thinking or positioning framework. Things are based on 3 specific layers, which you see over here, or let's say aspects. We have security of data. So this is data storage, the different storages like legacy applications or tools, and then access control. Because nothing today is more valuable than data, especially personalized data. So we provide the security. We also provide a basis for interaction and communication. Of course, interoperability, you may have applications, but the core value as we see it is created at the top, where you see interaction, you see shared services, and actually dashboards. And for us, it's that how can we provide smart people with actionable intelligence on which they can make informed decisions. And this is, just to show you how it's done. This is just one example of how we use this. So all of the IT developments which we're doing, we're trying to map them onto this so people can clearly see where data is coming from, internal, external, and how things are happening. And we have 2, let's say, main components. So one is down below here. This is where, let's say, data, which is securely stored related to energy, devices, buildings, or even open data. We have our indexing services. We also ensure we have access controls, such as anonymized one. And then on top, and then of course, and this is just communications, but then we're able to connect this with what we call the SPARCS data collection services. We collect data from other sources, we do mappings, we create a common model, we do certain visualizations, such as billing history, home analytics, peer comparisons, KPIs, you mentioned it. And these point towards apartment and homeowner visualization dashboards, where they can have something which actually makes great sense for them and they can take actionable intelligence. Let me just very briefly show you how our cities are working towards making this. And the first one I'd like to highlight is the city of Espoo, which is one of our lighthouse cities. And what we've done is we've tried to map out, what are some of their challenges, what solutions they're looking into, and then what impacts. So let me just pick out a few. We can always share these materials with you later on if and when needed. So one of the things was, how do we connect our different systems from local energy systems, RES integration, smart building, smart grid, energy storage, electromobility, and EV charging. And some of the solutions we have seen towards that is, yes, of course, we integrate these. A virtual power plant is the proper mechanism to do that. Make sure that we have demand flexibility, heat, electricity, and somehow how do these support a sustainable lifestyle and energy efficient behavior at different levels? And what we're expecting to get into this, that the amount of, let's say, renewable energy sources in terms of energy production, it continues to rise and suddenly becomes a new norm. We also get into replicable solutions across different districts and areas of the city. So there is much more, and I just wanted to briefly show you. Now, in Espoo, we have 4 main areas where we're trying to demonstrate such impact. There is Kera, which you see over here. It was an area which only had, let's say, warehouse, and it's in total development. So how do we revamp a storage area into something where we can showcase wonderful solutions for citizens? So this is like a living lab. And the city of Espoo, and I'm sure many other cities, they like to call themselves innovation test beds. They will look into city development, smart technologies, co-creation, mobility solutions. In the Espoo district, it's building a set of blocks. There's a part of a metro station where there's a huge, let's say, shopping mall in concept. And here we're looking into renewable energy systems, energy storage, a lot of citizen engagement, multimodal transport, etc. And then in, for example, the Finno area. Here the idea is that how do we learn from these other districts we're working with, replicate some, and then scale up? And again, in the Leppävaara district, this is renewable energy systems, energy storage, smart technologies, and e-mobility. And so this is, for example, just one part of what is happening at Lippulaiva. What you see at the bottom of the picture, this was an old development, and now what you see at the top is, this is pretty much where we stand today. So what have they done? First of all, making use of the largest geoenergy plant in Europe for a commercial building, total PV roof and facade, production of close to 580 megawatt hours per year. EV charging stations are in place, but the best part perhaps in the case of Lippulaiva has been citizen engagement. There have been buddy classes, people have worked together, co-creations have been held with youngsters. There are 32 families involved in co-creating different things specifically. And then, of course, how do we promote a sustainable lifestyle for the people? If I now quickly jump into our other wonderful lighthouse city, which is Leipzig. So what are they doing? Now, it's actually quite interesting because they have some challenges of historic or retrofitted building stock. Sometimes you have a heterogeneous owner structure. And it actually gets even more interesting. You have conflict of uses. Should I use space for additional renewable energy sources? Or should I use that for social housing? Or do we have the environmental protection? And some of the solutions they're looking into, how do we create new socioeconomical and ecological concepts for constructing and operating a solar thermal plant within the city? Can this help? Synergies, energy sector coupling, and so much more. And what are they actually going to be doing? Of course, you increase renewable energy generation, you reduce the carbon footprint, but interestingly, even provide solutions for existing and historic building stock. Design and deployment of citizen-centric solutions, and the list goes on. But let me just show you, at a rough end, the districts and the places they're looking at. In Leipzig West, first of all, how do we decarbonize district heating? They're mapping out waste heat potential, constructing power to heat storage, and then also building Germany's largest solar thermal plant. In another area, this is smart social housing. optimizing thermal energy, liberating energy transition, citizen engagement. The bomullsspinneri, I may have that pronunciation wrong, sorry. It's an area where they had cotton mills. And now the idea is, how do we change that into a cultural location? So you have things like smart energy systems, citizen engagement, and electric vehicle charging. And then this whole area you see is the so-called virtual energy community. And here you provide people with different types of applications and sources. They can see what types of energy is available. They can have green contracts, green plugs, plug in their cars and actually make informed choices. And then towards the main, let's say, city center, and because this is where the government or the governance, let's say, body of the public administration, sorry, of Leipzig is based, they're looking at things from a bigger, wider perspective. So how do we provide community support for energy transformation, replication, scalability, and then different types of roadmaps towards carbon neutrality? And here's an example of Leipzig West, where they're building Germany's largest solar thermal plant. First stage, expecting approximately 13 gigawatt hours per annum. In the second stage, 25 gigawatt hours per annum, and actually providing a peak of up to 30 megawatts. Also looking into how do we decarbonize the system, district heating system. So of course, one simple mechanism is how do we bring in these RES, renewable energy systems, into district heating, and then how do we integrate a power to heat and heat storage within the system. And this is based on an analysis of where can we capture this waste heat. And last but not least, how do we support district heating with this solar thermal power plant? And again, a lot of social citizen engagement. Let's not forget that in our project, we also have our fellow cities. I like to call them our super replicators and scalers. And the idea behind SPARCS is that how can we make and inspire our fellow cities towards a transition into carbon-free urban communities. So based on the experiences from lighthouse cities such as Espoo and Leipzig, we prepare the ground, then we use our other partners, also reach out to other cities, so our fellow cities can actually learn and actually connect to more than 100 smart cities across Europe. That would help them replicate and scale up some of their solutions. Now in the city of Kifisia in Greece, they're committed to improving quality of life and are aiming to implement solutions towards a smarter, human-centered, and of course, carbon-free city. In the city of Kladno, the focus is on smart solutions for energy savings, smart grids, heating, energy resource management, air pollution, digitalization, even low-emission transport. Lviv, unfortunately, as we all know the situation happening over there, there are certain pauses, but again, our partners there are still working very actively in trying to learn from others and bring in certain solutions in place. And for them, one of the main ones, in addition to, let's say, just replication solution, is how to bring in better management processes and structures within the city of Lviv. So how can we do things rapidly and scale up? In Maia in Portugal, they want to be a smarter, sustainable, inclusive, and integrated zero carbon community, again, supported by renewable energy sources. And last but not least, we have Reykjavik. Now, they're actually in this project to learn and, head towards the objective of becoming carbon neutral by 2040. To scale up and replicate some of the solutions from the lighthouse cities. And like I mentioned earlier on, we're happy to say that our partner Reykjavik is chosen as one of the 100 mission cities within the Net Zero Cities project. And last but not least, I'd like to close, with some essential key takeaways, if I may. Innovations in cities require a harmonious balance between resource efficiency, this is what I call environmental feasibility, the quality of life, which is social desirability, and then sustainable growth or economic viability. Then when we bring in digital solutions, they actually help support cities' energy transition towards carbon neutrality. And let's not forget that a city has many systems and subsystems, that need to be seamlessly interlinked and connected holistically, systematically, you name it. And last but not least, perhaps most importantly, a city is at best as smart as the people who reside in it and those who manage it. It is our role to provide them with the correct data and tools so they can make informed decisions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Please feel free to reach us out at SPARCS, where you see our names and my colleagues' names and everything over there. And last but not least, if you would like to contact me, I'll just keep up some of my information so you can reach out to me. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sami. We can now move on with the Q&A part. Let me just see if we have any questions. I think we had a question from before for Rui. I think, yeah, he's still here. I am on my screen. So we have a question from Nikita. He's asking, in the community solar farm project, who owns the land where the solar panels are installed?
Okay, thank you for your question, Nikita. In terms of the process for the build-up of the community solar farm, the land is owned by the municipality, which is preparing a public bid to do a concession of that land for a private group to build up that community solar farm scheme. Okay, so the land is owned by the municipality, and it's going to use public procurement to deliver that land to a consortium to build up the community solar farm.
Okay, thank you. We also have another question from Mike. Rui, can you also share any details or links to find out more about the roof tiles shown in the solar panels beneath the transparent shell of the tile? That's a very specific question. I think Rui is reconnecting probably. In the meantime, I also see a question also referred to Sami and to Rui as well. So what are the main challenges felt so far in the integration of the different digital technologies? Perhaps we can take over while he's rejoining.
Yes, I can. Thank you so much, Julia, for a wonderful question. I think this has been, one of the major pain points which many of us have had for years. Different systems, and especially legacy ones, they have their own access mechanism. So again, even if you build some API or some mechanism around them to access information, when they get updated, this can break. Where we're hoping and seeing is that how can we get some form of, let's say, compliance with readable common standards? And naturally nowadays that, I think the most key thing is that users should start demanding more. In the past, you would go up and an IT vendor would say, well, we have a fantastic solution, here you go. But they would just give us a part of it. We as users perhaps were not aware of, let's say, what data or what information was being collected, what did we have access to? And since we actually are providing the data, we should own all of it, not the vendor. So we should know what data is available, and then we should have the capability to, if and when needed, offer that to our, let's say, developers so they could build something meaningful around that. But Rui, let me give it to you to take over. I mean, you can see the question by Julia is that, what are the main challenges felt in the integration of different digital technologies?
Thank you, Sami. I believe that you said it right. The first challenge is to set the grounds for the ecosystem to grow, and that's for the city to do. No one else can do it. So it's a framework that the city needs to build up, to be open, to be able to integrate new solutions, and to be open needs to be open on data, needs to be open on integration and interoperability. So there are different levels of openness, by the way. And I believe this is the grounds. The city needs to set the grounds, needs to own the solution through a public contract or by their own teams, but needs to build the ecosystem that grows from there to a very integrated ecosystem of application, a modular framework of applications. So if you put a new application, there is no disruption in the framework or in the data or in interoperability. So that's the biggest concern. I believe that as today, well, no city or smaller cities don't have this topic resolved, but it's something that they need to be very concerned. Also because of the complexity of the systems, from technology to energy to environment to every other vectors of the urban living that they need to be addressed and need to be put together on a common framework.
We can go back to the previous question. I don't know if you had the time to see it because you were reconnecting, but Mike is asking if you can share details or links to find out more about the roof tiles shown in the solar panels beneath the transparent shelf of the tile.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe that can be shared regarding the solutions that are being deployed and how they are being deployed within the city. Yes. He can send me an email and I can share. Also, there is information, of course, in the POCITYF website, but any specific detail that anyone needs to have access, please send me an email.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And we also have another question from Jano. Could you share more information on the IT load of the data center and how much the data center provides flexibility to the grid?
Okay, so flexibility data center is very efficient actually in terms of usage of energy. So actually nowadays it consumes any and every energy that it produces, and we are setting up a solar plant near side the data center, but it will use 100% of that energy. So actually the workload or the balance, probably it's the opposite way. So the community solar farm or the energy communities can provide energy to the data center, because the data center is a 24/7 more or less constant consumption in terms of energy. So it's a 1 megawatt data center. So even it's a small data center, not a big one, but it has a constant consumption of energy. So to be positive, but it's a big production of energy, and we have still the problem of storage during the night for the energy that it consumes, also the same during the night as during the day. So we have still some issues to solve to be a positive building.
Okay, thank you very much for this answer. I don't see any other questions so far or any raised hands, so maybe just let's give 1 or 2 minutes to our audience if anyone has anything else to ask. But
let me just add one thing about that I didn't say previously on the question from Sami, that it is very important to look at standards and best practices when you build up the framework. There are several best practices or good practices or even standards that are being deployed in the topic of smart cities and data and application integration. So it's very important that you keep this in mind and start from the standards, start from the normalization of data, normalization of interoperability, and go from there on. Don't start just doing like we used to say, you need first to understand what we are doing, then to see what others are doing, and then try to invent something. Because if you start from inventing something new, probably it has already been invented or the standard is already there. So don't start the wrong way and be very focused on normalization of the data and of the framework that you are building up.
that sounds like a very reasonable tip, I have to say. Thank you very much. Thank you also to Sami for already sharing his presentation in the chat. We'll upload all the information also on the website and we'll share it with you if that's okay. So if there are no further questions or comments, I would like to thank all of you once again for joining and to our wonderful speakers and their extremely valuable input. Do not hesitate to keep in touch or to contact them if you have any further questions or you need further information. I think generally the format works very well and it's extremely valuable for the different projects just to share insights and to engage in this format. So thanks again to all of you. I would like to wish you a wonderful day ahead and a wonderful week. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
everyone.
much. Have a lovely week.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vladi. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Sami. Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.